Welcome to Book Talks, the show that speaks to education, health, entrepreneurship, and so much more.
Dumelang, and welcome to another episode of Book Talks, the podcast that amplify, build, and connect. My name is Lisiba Matapo, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are talking about the G20 Summit. On today's episode, we are going to talk about the G20 Summit. To tell us all about it, our guest today is Mndeni Ndwandwe. Welcome to the show. Sir.
Thank you.
Sure.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Great stuff.
So introduce yourself to the viewers.
My name is Mndeni Ndwandwe. I'm with the GCIS.
Yeah.
I'm a project manager for the ICTS cluster. But I've just been appointed as the project leader for the G20. I think my job is just to coordinate all communication activities from all government departments to just ensure that the G20, not only the summit, but our overall presidency of the G20 is seamless and is well coordinated across the board.
Okay.
That's me, yeah.
So what is this G20 all about?
G20 is a formation of countries, and when you look at its inception and how it actually started, it was actually a response from a global financial crisis in the early 1997 to 1999, where countries came together to come up with a global formation that is going to address such. But as time went along, G20 grew. I can tell you that in 2023, African Union also was admitted into G20, and it means that as AU, we are also part of G20, and South Africa is mainly part of G20 and has been part of G20. So I think G20 seeks to address issues of financial issues, but also when you look at it from an AU perspective, we are also looking at achieving the Agenda 2063. We are looking at issues of reform of other structures that we aspire and that we look into as Africa as a continent, but also issues of food safety and security. Those are most of the issues that we are looking at. Anti-corruption, crime. Those are the issues that I would say are the priorities of the African Union when it comes to G20. So in overall, you will then have all countries circulating in terms of the hosting of the G20. And yes, we'll be doing that as soon as the 1st of December this year.
Right. So, what is South Africa's participation in the G20, and what does it mean for us as a country?
All right. Thank you so much. Look, with us, we are a full member of the G20, and we've been a full member of the G20 for quite some time. When you look at the priorities of G20, those are the priorities that actually seek to steer us as a country, as a nation, towards achieving our own emancipation, especially with the issue of economic emancipation, but also your overall global governance matters. But what it means for general South Africans is that we are growing from an economic perspective. We are able to do trade with other countries, with bigger and better economies, and that puts us in a very good positive spot. But what it also means, having to take presidency, it just means that we are going to be attracting a lot of global investors, global trade. I think that is most of the things that we are looking to achieve, with us hosting the G20 in this coming year.
So. And then how long is the presidential, role of in G20?
Right. So, like any other, formations or groups, it's the chairing or rather the president of G20 is is a year long. So we are assuming presidency on the 1st of December this year. We are handing over again after the summit in November next year. On the 1st of December 2025, that's where we are handing over to the next country. But just to answer your question, it's a 12 months period, presidency, yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, isn't that a short period? Would you say?
Well, it's very long for us. We'll be doing the work. But yeah, look, I mean, I think if you were to preside over countries, then you have to circulate the presidency. I mean, with AU it's 1 year, with BRICS it's 1 year. So I think it's just an adoption of that model of having to preside or chair for a year.
I mean, what is the difference between the G20 membership and the BRICS nations?
Look, there's not much of a difference, because I can tell you now that BRICS countries are actually part of the G20.
Yeah.
We had China in 2022 presiding over G20. Now Brazil 2023 is presiding over G20. We as South Africa are presiding over G20 2024, 2025. So that tells you that there's not much of a difference, because all BRICS countries, if I may, are actually part of the G20, and you are seeing a series in terms of how we are presiding over the G20 consecutively, taking cue from China, India, now Brazil, then it's ourselves. So, but, you know, probably the priorities may not be the same, because each formations and groups would have their own priorities. But in the end, it is all those platforms that we use as a country to advance ourselves in the global, stage, and also to make sure that through trade and investment, we are able to go through and we make our name there.
Okay. Again, so why is it significant for South Africa to take over the presidency of the G20?
I think the first significance is that this is going to be the first time G20 ever comes to Africa, and G20 having to be presided over by an African country. And I think not only for South Africans, but for the entire AU, which is the African Union, it's a very significant milestone. And we want to make sure as South Africa that we set the bar very high. We are going to host a very, very extravagant and a beautiful summit, but not only the summit, through our chairing period. We have different working groups that we are going to be part of, and we want to make sure that resolutions are not just going to be, on paper, but in terms of, implementation and everything. But the significant part is that we want to show the world that as Africa, as South Africa, we can be able to preside over and also to host events of this magnitude. But lastly, from an economic activity perspective, it gives us an opportunity to market our country. Unlike other formations, maybe with smaller countries, we'll be hosting 139 ministerial meetings. We've got outreach program that is coming. So we'll be having a lot of ambassadors from different countries. And what we have taken as a resolution in South Africa is that we are going to make sure that we give them a South African experience. If the meeting is in Kruger National Park, we have to take them, if it's in Mpumalanga, we have to take them at Kruger. If it's in, take them to God's Window. If it's in other areas of the country, we must make sure that our tourism destinations are going to be, visited by our visitors. So we've got that significant, and it also plays a role in our own economic activities. So throughout that particular year, we will be having a bit of economic activities that we should pride ourselves with at the end of the day.
South Africa prides itself as being, one of the first, African countries in a lot of things. So in this instance, you indicated that it is actually the first African country to host the G20. So in your opinion, what do you think that is for Africa actually? What does it mean?
Look, it says to the global stage and to the whole world that we are not only good for minerals, for mining and all of that, but we are counterparts, and that we've got ability and capability to can do a lot of things. We can host events of this magnitude. I mean, we've hosted BRICS a couple of times. We've hosted AU a couple of times. We've hosted a couple of, summits. But what it means really is to say we don't always want to say we are the better country in Africa, but we are doing well, and we want to do well, and we want our African counterparts also to do well. I mean, it will be very good one day that G20 goes to another African country at some point, and it's something that we should be happy about.
So you indicated that hosting the G20 would be, economically beneficial to South Africa, and also in tourism as well, that it benefits South African tourism as well. Other than that, what other benefits do you think the G20 will bring to South Africa?
Look, G20 as a formation, you look at it, and you look at the summit itself, as high level as it may be, you may not be able to see, those direct spin-offs, but you are able to see positive spin-offs as you go along. For instance, the injection of, a foreign currency that is going to be happening constantly within the period of these 12 months of us being in the presidency. Also, from our tourism sector, we are going to be doing very well. I mean, our arts and craft, we will be doing very well in terms of sales and marketing. We want to market our country. We want to market our country from our indigenous point of view. If you look at, I'll show you, if you look at our logo of the G20, it's not just anything, but it's a protea, which is our national symbol. It's a national flower.
Yes.
We want to market ourselves in that, to say, look, we are in South Africa. As a country, this is who we are, and this is what we actually trying to sell out there to the world. And another element, I know we are going to maybe get into it later on, but we have targeted, academic institutions as well. What we want to do, we want to take, meetings or outreach in different academic institutions that are not globally known, like your University of Mpumalanga, in Mpumalanga, so that when people from outside the country come, they would know that there's Mpumalanga University, there's Sol Plaatje in the Northern Cape. So those are the things that we are trying to do, and in that we can be able to attract even students from across the world, and that's what we are trying to do actually.
So what are the highlights of the G20 program for the year?
Oh, it's a very busy year, and I was saying, we are not even allowed to get tired until we hand over. Look, man, I think the first important thing is that it's going to be a Sherpa meeting that is going to take place, which is going to be starting off after the handing over. So we've got two tracks. We've got financial track and we've got a Sherpa track. So there's going to be a meeting that's going to take 2-3 days, and then after which we are going to have 139 ministerial meetings that are going to be spread across the country. And across the country, we mean that every province at least should have 1 or 2 meetings, wherein there's going to be, discussions by ministers on matters of G20, senior officials meetings. There's also going to be outreach program, which is going to be spread also across the country. In all, there's going to be a lot of, exposure in terms of how we expose our country, through Brand South Africa as well, through DERCO and ourselves, just to try and put ourselves in the map. But what is important that needs to come out of there are the discussions and resolutions that are going to be taking place from all those working groups. So in essence, that's basically it.
Okay. So tell us about the G20 outreach program.
Outreach program.
Yeah.
So With the outreach program, I think I'm even proud to say that it was conceptualized here in-house by ourselves.
Of course.
Look, we are planning to have a fully fledged outreach program that is going to take place across the country. The twist is that we want to visit, communities and make an outreach program. But not only communities, we want to bring all stakeholders involved, bring them in one room and be able to discuss matters of the G20. Now, we have spread it across the 9 provinces. And obviously, as a directive of Cabinet and the IMC, it is that departments and ministers should be able to do work of the G20 through the outreach based on their constitutional mandate. So, for instance, if you are talking of, if the theme of the day is global warming, so it means the ministry or the Minister in Environmental Affairs will be able to lead that. So we've opened it up to all departments and said, look, here's slots, and if your minister wants to do an outreach, here's a slot, this is the theme, then we support that fully. So we'll be going through across the country. We have also targeted, as I've indicated, the academic community. We want to not only market them, but we want to get an academic perspective of things, so that we can be able to look up to each other, government and academia. I know the South African School of Government is doing well in that, but also from the perspective of academic writing, we want to be able to harvest. When we finish our G20 program, we need to be able to say, we have been able to write so many, academic articles on G20. Obviously, you'll be having your media, your online articles, but the element that is actually missing is one of academic, articles and academic writing. Why I'm saying that? Because it brings that scientific, writing. It's not a matter of, a hearsay kind of, writing, but it is based and informed by research. So if you've got researchers and academia being involved in that, then we're good. We're also going to bring business into the picture as part of the stakeholders as we roll the outreach program. Formation, civil sector society. We're going to have SALGA, we're going to have your traditional leader, so that we can all have a conversation. We want to say, when we are in Gauteng, all stakeholders of holders of Gauteng must have come, and then we must have this. We must have had this conversation on G20. At least everybody should be abreast of what we're talking about. There's a number of working groups that are going to be taking place, and I think all provinces will also be able to participate in that. So basically, yeah.
Okay. So how can citizens participate in the G20 outreach program?
Great. Look, we are saying through our outreach programs, citizens should be able to participate. They can do that through structures and formation, but also as individual citizens, if there's an outreach program, you should be able to participate. I mean, if for instance we are going to Mpumalanga and we are going to even have a walkabout at a mall, we can distribute promotional material, we can distribute, flyers, we can engage. If it's a minister, we can have that engagement, and I think that is participation. But also through, civil sector, or rather civil society formation, South African citizens can really participate in G20, and it's for all of us in one way or the other, whether you're participating from a business perspective, and which we are encouraging, whether you are doing it from an academic perspective, because you have people who say, look, we are here, but we want to know more about, the global posture of things. Some, they want to write their masters, some they want to do their doctorates. We are channeling them and say, look, here is a space. Come and look at, the global posture of our financial architecture. Look at our global governance, and we take it from there. So citizens are really encouraged to participate. There will be platforms, social media platforms, even through Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter. Participation is encouraged. That is why we want to have these outreach programs and take it to the people.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, on economic participation as well,
yeah.
Is this are these programs going to also viable for small businesses? You know, in sense of like people can, or like how can a small business participate in these programs?
Correct. You see, for instance, I'm not promoting here, but I'm saying if you look at your Abu Mamo Esther Masango, for instance,
Yes.
you know, hair craft. If we are able to put that out there, be able to sell it. If you've got somebody, you know, in probably deep rural areas who has got the ability and the skills to craft something beautiful, we can sell that, you know. But also from our indigenous perspective, tourism, our food industry, our wine industry, we are just out there just to ensure that we will talk about how we are going to do exhibitions for small businesses throughout these ministerial meetings or throughout outreach programs wherein we can have, you know, stalls where, you know, they can exhibit and they can be able to sell and make good money out of that. Yeah.
So what message do you hope visitors will take away from the G20 art, food and wine festival about South Africa's culture, values and potential as a global leader?
Look, we are a diverse society.
Yeah.
And I think what we pride ourselves with as South Africa is our diversity. And we always say that united in our diversity. And that is enshrined in the Constitution, in the preamble of our Constitution.
Yeah.
So I think our diversity is one of the strong message that comes out and that describes us as a nation. But if you look at the theme of G20, we're talking about solidarity, we're talking about equality, and we're talking about sustainability. And it's a message that we want to take out there, that even after we have hosted, we have hosted the summit, and we have presided over the entire year on G20, but we should be able to take out a message out there that we are open for business. I think that is one important message that needs to go to the global stage, that needs to go to the world, that South Africa is open for business, that we pride ourselves as a nation based on our diversity, but also there's a lot of things that we want to do, and we also want to encourage you know, the free Africa trade, which is out there. And I remember we were the first to even launch the first shipment. So, I mean, a lot of things are happening, of course, for the first time in South Africa.
Yeah.
But it's a topic for another day. But we are encouraging that. I mean, free trade is actually going to benefit a lot of small businesses in the country and in the continent as a whole. But we also are still, as a country, you know, affiliated with a couple of formations that we are not just, you know, members of, but we hold a very good influence over those. And yeah, we are fine, we are good. And we are hoping also that we become not only a tourism destination, but we are open for business.
Of course, sure. So where can one find more information and plan programs for the duration of South Africa's G20 presidency?
Right, so there's a website.
Yeah.
The website is www.g20.org. We can also get information from government websites, from government social media platforms, that is South African government. So you can go on Twitter, which is X, you can go on you know, Facebook and other platforms. You can go to DERCO websites. You can also go to DERCO social media platform. So those platforms are actually, you know, linked to each other so that we can be able to get as much reach as possible. So that's where you can be able to get the information. For now, the website is not live. It will be live immediately when we take over the G20 presidents on the 1st of December.
All right. Thank you for, you know, blessing us with your presence here and talking about the G20. Yeah, thank you very much for that.
I think I'm the one that is blessed. Thank you so much.
Right, there you have it, folks. The G20 will be here in South Africa in 2025. And on that note, we say goodbye.